60-minute drive for a 60-minute game. After all the miles we've traveled, we're almost there. After all the hours we've worked, one more can make us legends. After all.
Welcome to the recap of the college football playoff. We're here with Bill Carroll, Greg Rector. Of course, I'm Jeff Barnes. We have now seen the Ohio State Buckeyes punch their ticket to the national title game versus the Notre Dame Fighting Irish with an impressive 28-14 win over the University of Texas. Once again, there's no shame. Texas, top, Final Four of this 12-team playoff. This isn't a 4-team playoff. So you had to win to get to this point. There's nothing to hang their heads about, but unfortunately, the Ohio State Buckeyes were the better team today. Greg, Bill, your thoughts on this win?
Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Well, I remember saying that Quinn Ewers is going to give you a couple opportunities to get the ball. And one of them obviously was via the final interception, but also his old freshman year roommate, Jack Sawyer, reacquainted himself with Mr. Ewers, obviously. The fact is that it's like so many games, it was decided in that, 27, 28 inches on each side of the football, right? It's like so many games. We saw the more dominant team in the trenches, the more dominant team on the line of scrimmage was quite simply Ohio State. Texas is a very loaded, very talented team with a lot of great players, but you could just see the sheer difference in the two teams, mainly right there. And you could see one team when it wanted to, when it had to, could run the ball. Both teams struggled to run the ball, but one team found ways to, whether it be QB power, whether it be draws, found a way to run the ball when it really wanted to, really needed to. Texas could not ever really they had one drive where they got the run game kind of going, but other than that one drive, could not ever get any consistency in the running game. But again, because the line of scrimmage was being reset by Ohio State, 12 to 18 inches pushed back into their backfield. And you can't run the football consistently when your backs are having to chop their feet or slow down or change direction. And the last thing I'll say is I was a little surprised by Steve Sarkisian. After that one sort of token rush attempt in their last drive, where they had a chance to tie the game up again before the strip sack, I thought he would get more creative. You might see one of those tight end delays where it looks you go heavy, you look like it's run, then you pull it out of the belly of the running back, and after count of 1/1000, the tight end slides off a block and almost always is wide open. I thought you might see one of those thunder shovel option deals where you go heavy and maybe have a tight end go in motion and line up in the wing or line up as a fullback, and then the quarterback fakes it to tailback and spins and shovels it forward and to a tight end who then plows in, or at least hopefully plows in. I thought something more creative was coming, and then to try to get to the edge, to try to get to the and without anything to threaten the middle, right? It's one thing when you have like a thing that looks like the quarterback's going to try to, once again, whether it be a QB power, QB counter, or sneak or something, and then boom, pitches it out after trying to threaten the middle, because that at least holds the linebackers and holds people in the middle of the field at first, and then maybe you can get to the edge. But to just try like a straight, stretch or toss, sweep, or anything like that without something to threaten the middle to a team with the team speed and talent on defense of Ohio State, I thought that was foolishness. So they had their opportunities. They were right there with them. The teams, I thought of all the teams with the most talent were these two teams, the two most talented teams. But Ohio State was clearly, especially on the offensive and defensive lines, just a little more talented than Texas. And that, I thought, was the real difference.
What about you, Greg?
Yeah, Bill pretty well summed everything up here. For me, the game turned when it was 7-7 in the first half, and then with 29 seconds left, the Texas defense, they called a blitz. No, no, no. You just don't do. You just keep everybody in front of you with 29 seconds left, and Travion Henderson doesn't go for the 75 yards. That was the game. That was the ball game. Both teams committed a lot of dumb penalties tonight, including Travion Henderson early on. It was, and that really took away from what should have been a much higher scoring game as well. Were the penalties that both teams took. It was really for me the Travion Henderson play at the end of the first half, and then the Will Howard QB power. I mean, that was coming, and even Herb Street and Fowler were talking about QB power. Well, it was right there. It was right there, and Will Howard took advantage of it. Ball game.
I'm with you. You know, I'm going to say this. People have given Ryan Day a lot of flack. So here he goes. He loses out on the Big Ten. He loses 2 games this year. And honestly, people were expecting Ohio State to fail at some point in this, right? They thought they were going to lose to Oregon. I was in that, group that said most likely they do. They just match up with Oregon in a certain way where Oregon's had a lot of success against them. That didn't happen. They pretty much beat the heck out of Oregon. But then they turn around and once again, I guess people will say it was Sark that choked this time, and we can get on Sarkisian in a minute. But you got to give credit to Ryan Day. Here's a guy who knows he has a defense. At times that defense has failed him this year. But in some of the games that they've lost, it was their offense, that kind of hurt them. They lost to Oregon. They had chances to put that game away. They didn't. They lost to Michigan. They didn't score at all to what they're capable of scoring. So they came into the playoffs with something to prove, and they proved it. I think we've seen a team that's won saying we're not going down. No matter what we do, no matter how many mistakes we make, we're going to find a way to make up for it and make it happen. The plays they made down the stretch where the defense was giving up a lot of yards to Texas on that final drive before Quinn Ewers got sacked, fumbled, and it was a return for a touchdown. That right there was a drive where normally that Ohio State defense was playing with their backs on the goal line, and a lot of people were waiting for them to break down. It didn't happen this time around. When Texas went out there and tied it up in second half. You were waiting for Ohio State's offense to get into that rut where, oh, shoot, we're in this tough ball game. We can't seem to pull away from these guys. They're going to make that mistake and give Texas a chance to beat them. It didn't happen. They found their way right back to the end zone again. So this team is finding ways to win, and it's not the most flashy right now. The Oregon game was flash and more flash. But tonight, it was more about grit. This team gritted out a win in a very tough situation against a tough team. One thing I'll say about Texas is this has been the second time in this playoff that their running game has fallen flat. And that's one of the things we said was strong about this team this year. The fall flat in the second straight playoff game is a problem. So there's going to be something they're going to have to look at with Texas in this offense going forward when Arch Manning becomes the quarterback, because we know Quinn Ewers is going to the pros. So I think what we're looking at right now is what can Ohio State do versus a team that wins on grit as well with Notre Dame, because that's going to be a big battle now. 2 teams that gritted out wins back-to-back nights going up against each other.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things that sort of jump out about that upcoming matchup. And I don't believe we'll see Jeremiah Smith be quite so silent. Cardell Tate was really the most effective of their receivers tonight. Shout out to Chicago, Cardell Tate, who I got to see a little bit of him in his high school days here. But what you saw was for the most part, of course, Greg pointed out that one time it didn't happen. For the most part, they played a lot of off. They kept, for the most part, once again, with a couple of notable exceptions, everything in front of them, and did a good job of getting a decent amount of pressure. And when they didn't get pressure, getting their hands up in the passing lanes. And that's something Notre Dame's also good at. But I think the big difference is that where Texas is able to sometimes get pressure even when they're dropping a lot of people, I wonder if Notre Dame is missing at least one key part of their downline, their defensive downline group. And they've gotten away with it to some extent so far. I wonder if this is when it finally catches up with them, because Ohio State is, well, at least to this point, will be the most dominant group that they've seen, right? Because people talk about the SEC all the time, blah, 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 SEC, But despite all the sort of talk about the SEC being all the way up here and the junior NFL and all this stuff, the best offensive lines I've seen have not been in the SEC. They've either been in the Big Ten. I mean, though the Moore Award, as was talked about, was won by Army, that's sort of a special situation. They play well together. It's like a symphony. They're extremely synchronized. But these guys are like 264.5 pounds, I think, is the average weight. So it's not quite the same as what we're talking about, where it's like 309 or something is the average weight for Ohio State. So it's a very different kind of offensive line. And usually when Notre Dame plays somebody, they're the bully boy, right? Their offensive line is usually the biggest, and their defensive line is usually big enough. And this will be the first time, I think, I have to go back and double check. They've seen somebody who matches up exactly the same way, but is even deeper, right? Ohio State has a lot of the same kind of players on the line, but has even more depth. And they have superior wide receiver talent to anyone I think that they've faced so far this year. Though, once again, shout out to Texas, who largely, with the exception of a couple of plays that Cardell Tate made and a couple of plays that Ibuka made, really kept the wide receivers kind of quiet. Now, the running backs were a different story, but they kept the wide receivers largely quiet in the receiving game. And even the tight ends didn't make that much noise, but the running backs, of course, were a different story. And once again, object lesson: throw the ball to your running backs, people. I don't think people do it enough, especially, I mean, the wheel route is practically undefeated against certain looks. Call more wheel routes, people. If you leave remembering nothing else, more running back rail routes, more running back wheel routes. It's the way, when you hit a big play off a rail route, a offensive coordinator earns their wings.
Well, Joe is completely right here. As Brock also points out many, many times, I'm so sick and tired of seeing these quarterbacks in the shotgun and they're handing the balls off. Because again, like you said last night, Jeff, the running back isn't getting the ball in stride. He's got to be twisted, and it's just stupidity. Notre Dame, though, puts pressure on teams on third downs. And what does Ohio State not do very well? They do not execute their short ground game on third down well at all. That's going to be a test for the Ohio State Buckeyes, because the Notre Dame Fighting Irish come at you with more pressure than any other team in football. They do it 48% of the time.
Yep.
So that's going to be a very, very key test. It's going to be a very interesting game. Absolutely going to be a very interesting game, because Ohio State, you've got those big name receivers, but guess what? Notre Dame is going to play the same two deep safety that Texas gave you. Jeremiah Smith, you're not going to be wide open.
Right, which is fine.
Yeah.
I think this was sort of a good dress rehearsal to some extent. And the big difference, you said, is blitz, right? They bring pressure much more often than Texas did. But that also means at some point the math is going to require that somebody's open. So that if the blitz doesn't get there, or if Howard's 234 pounds, I think. Even if you hit him, he doesn't always go down. So
But Notre Dame's pressure a lot of the time is minus a blitz on third down. They're just coming at you with those four guys, so they're still in coverage.
well, I hear what you're saying, but they've proven they can handle a talented front that's
Yep.
just bringing four. I mean, we just saw that. Like, that's a talented bunch. There's a couple of guys going to go in the first 50, 60 picks of either this draft or the next draft playing on Texas's D line. And they're close to 100% in terms of like having their full complement of players. And as mentioned previously, with Mills not being there, admittedly it's just one player, but that's one very important player. And I like I said, they've gotten away with it at this point, but I wonder if this game is a game where we sort of see the absence of Mills being.
Well, I think their pass rush is going to depend because Mills makes a big deal up the middle. He's been their most disruptive pass rusher, collapsing the pocket from the inside. I think it's going to factor in what Young does on the edge. Those guys on the edge can make it hard for Will Howard because if they get him uncomfortable in the pocket and try to move around and focusing on what's coming at him, it'll disrupt him from seeing things down the football field. We've seen that in the past with certain teams they played, Michigan to be one. So I think that's where, and we know Ohio State with the reshuffled line, their weakness is more on the edge than it is up the middle. They put their most experienced guys up inside. So I think that's the one thing that you got, this matchup we really got to look at. I know Mills is, like I said, he's huge for them, but if Notre Dame can get pressure on the outside next week, well, not next week, but, in that national title game, that's going to be the key because that's what's going to make Will Howard more uncomfortable, make him run a lot more. If Will Howard's having to use his legs scrambling, that means Ibuka's not getting that ball in that deep cross. That means you're not getting those receivers the ball. You're not getting that tight end the ball. The guys that can really hurt them, in the passing game. I think if they can make it where it's about Will Howard managing the pass rush, being able to escape when things are breaking down in the pocket, not letting those running backs get going early like they let Penn State's running backs get going early. That's going to be the biggest key for Notre Dame winning in that game. However, if I'm Ohio State, I'm looking at what Penn State did in that first half and saying, we can do that and we can do it better. Right. So there's certain things that when you look at the game yesterday, Ohio State's going to feel great about, but Notre Dame's also going to feel good about certain things. This wasn't the cleanest game for Ohio State by far. No. They were fortunate to only giving up 2 sacks today. I think, one of the things you look at the pass rushes, Notre Dame's pass rush to me is better than Texas's pass rush. So I think that's where Notre Dame is looking at it and saying we have opportunities to affect their passing game, but they got to put them in pass situations. They can't let Ohio State do what Penn State did yesterday. It has to get to nice early down runs, putting them in third and short. You're not going to be able to get them off the field that way.
Yeah, I think that Notre Dame's best chance to hang around and do what they do, gut it out and pull it out at the end. Well, one is obviously stay away from giving up big plays, which is true for any team. And they've got to really, every team has to avoid turnovers, but they've really got to be incredibly careful with the football. I don't think they can avoid even a single turnover. I think that any extra possessions swing it in Ohio State's favor to a point that they probably can't come back. And once again, special teams, right? People sometimes forget about the third phase. Texas eventually even, moved a little bit on from Brett Auburn. Now, I don't know if it's a temporary thing, if it was just giving him a break mentally or whatever, but, they had their second string place kicker out there at one point. So that's going to be important to me. Flipping the field in the punt game. Do you trust people to, aggressively go out and snatch the ball in the, even if you aren't returning it, just catch it to make sure it doesn't bounce and roll and you lose that quote unquote hidden yardage in the punt game. And then the last thing I'll say is what we've seen, obviously, as you said, playing a lot too deep. But the thing about playing too deep is you do leave that quote unquote hole shot, that honey hole, right? And is this version of Will Howard able to take advantage of that honey hole, that hole shot in that 17 to 22 yard area that is available to you against cover 2. That's, Aaron Rodgers has probably completed like 40% of the yardage in his career against that particular shot in that area. And if you told me at the beginning of the year that you're going to play a lot of cover 2, I would have said I have no confidence in Will Howard's ability to take advantage of that hole. But this version of Will Howard might be able to do it. And once again, even if you are being very careful and taking away those deep shots to Jeremiah Smith and Ibuka and even Cardell Tate, that means that you do have the ability to hit some of that stuff underneath. Once again, if protection holds, or if you're able to move the pocket enough that you're able to get away from it or whatever. One of the great play callers of the last 20 years is Chip Kelly. Now he's maybe not great at everything, right? He apparently is not really a people person, from what I've heard from people who've played for him and things like that. But he is a great sequencer of plays, and he adjusts very well to what you've done to stop them previously. This is where I think he's better than, frankly, anybody, even Cole Nicky, but anybody we've seen to this point. And Sarkisian is he is also a good play designer. I don't know if he's quite the same play sequencer that Chip Kelly is, if that makes sense. Okay. So I think he's very creative. I think he has a lot of really good ideas. I just think in terms of interpreting the intent of defenses and taking advantage of what defenses want to do in real time in games, that's where Chip Kelly differentiates from a guy like Sarkisian. That's where I think Chip Kelly will be more difficult for Notre Dame, because of how well he feels defenses' intentions in a way that I don't think Sarkisian does.
But Mr. Golden, the defensive coordinator for the Fighting Irish, is just as talented at reading what an offense wants to try, and he's had the answers all year long as well. So again, it's going to be a chess match. It's going to be a chess match.
It will.
And if again, even if they don't go to the double safeties, okay, Leonard Moore has shown that he can keep up with any receiver you want to put him out there against. Christian Gray has done very, very good against a receiver as well. Then you've got Kaiser in the middle. You've got Xavier Watts and Snead. These guys have mastered the turnover as well. So again, if Will Howard isn't accurate with his passes and Notre Dame does what they've done all year and create those turnovers, it's going to be a tough night for the Buckeyes.
Yeah. What? No offense to anyone, but Georgia's receiving core and Penn State's receiving core together don't equal the receivers at Ohio State.
Nobody touches this Ohio State receiving core.
So it's a little different challenge.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Listen, I agree with all that. I just, looking at the history of this matchup, you only have to go back 1 year, 10-7.
Yep.
Yeah, 10-7. And that was with Marvin Harrison and company there. So I don't think we have to. I don't think it's beyond the realm of ability for Notre Dame to slow this Ohio State offense down. I expected this game tonight.
Yeah.
I expected this game to be a lot more high scoring tonight. I expected both of these offenses to come out cranking it up, and we didn't get that. Despite the fact that quarterbacks ran the ball very well tonight, we didn't get that. What we got tonight was, plain and simple, opportunistic passing, struggles by both teams running the football consistently.
Yep.
And that's something where we looked at and said, well, both of these teams can run the ball. They can throw the ball very well. We should be able to see 20 to 30 points each from these teams. We didn't get that. We only got 28 because Sawyer runs the fumble back for TD. Right. Otherwise, it's 21-14, maybe 24 if they get the ball on their own end of the field. They got to drive it down the other way. So this is going to be a real interesting game. I think we're kind of seeing the defenses catch up a little bit and tighten these games up. But I just want to look at one thing on this box score real quick before I make this. Yeah, I mean, Henderson only touched the ball 6 times today. Now, granted, he was averaging 6 yards a carry.
Yep.
But 7 yards a carry. But most of that came on a 22-yard run. Other than that, under control.
Yeah.
Judkins had the 2 TDs, both short yardage, 4 yards a carry. So we're seeing control. Overall, 81 yards rushing for Ohio State. That is not an Ohio State total. They are known for going well over 100 as a team easily. So look at Texas. The second week in a row, they haven't even sniffed 100 yards as a team rushing.
Sure. Yep.
58. So I think both of these teams are going to have, just like we saw yesterday, both of them are going to have a hard time running the football. We saw Penn State do a better job than Notre Dame yesterday. But overall, these defenses are going to take the run away, force these quarterbacks to beat them, try and get their turnovers in that realm, and keep it take advantage of the turnover ratio. No big plays. I want to see these 2 tight ends go to work next week. We saw it tonight. Gunnar Helm had 1 big catch, but nothing else going on. We know Notre Dame loves to throw to their tight end, so that's going to be one of the key players. What Greathouse and those guys do after the catch is going to be something big for those guys. I really want to see if Notre Dame tries to take advantage and throw it vertical next week. That's going to be a big question.
I was about to bring that very point up. The next time I was going to talk about Notre Dame is Riley Leonard has to throw that ball much deeper. He has got to attack the secondary of the Ohio State Buckeyes. And if Caleb Downs wants to be the man that everybody says he is, he's going to have to stop Mitchell Evans. That'll be a hard task.
Yeah. If this game does come down to who has the better ability to get the ball deep down the field, I like Ohio State's chances in that situation. I think
obviously
they have. Yeah, I think so. Notre Dame will need to find a way to run the football, or else I don't like their chances. So that's obviously something I'm sure they're already working on, is figuring out, where there might be some opportunities, when there might be some opportunities, how to get, and maybe you'll run on what look like perhaps run on what looks like passing downs, run in sort of looks where the box is lighter or things like that, where you get some opportunities, but. Yeah, I don't think
Ohio State still has to account for the other runner for Notre Dame, and that's going to be Riley Leonard. That's going to be another key here, because Will Howard is not the mover that Riley Leonard is.
Well, he's not as slippery, but he's a very effective runner and very powerful runner. He's just not super fast.
Neither is Riley Leonard, but Leonard,
super fast.
He's got over 800 yards of rushing, right? I mean.
Right, but it's because he's a very willing runner, and they scheme up more runs for him than.
Yeah.
But Chip Kelly's willing to run Will Howard. He just wants to pick his spots more. I mean, he doesn't want Will Howard to be the leading rusher, which a few times this year, obviously, we've seen Riley Leonard lead the team in rushing.
I want to see if Coach Denbrock can take advantage of Igbinosun. We know, he's a big corner, but very grabby, right? We always talk about those grabby corners, a guy that gets out of phase quite often, so he starts grabbing. So I think that's why they got to find a way to attack him. You have smaller, quicker guys. They're usually better at beating the longer corners because they're shifty, right? So do you get Faison matched up on him? Do you get Greathouse matched up on him? I think those are the things they got to look to do if they really want to take advantage of Ohio State's defense. I think you could put him in some bad situations where those guys can run away from him, because what they're going to do is they want to catch it short and run away. They're not going to run vertical on him, but they want to put those double moves on him, the whip routes, the reverse routes, right? All that stuff underneath that you can shake him off, get a little space, and run away from him.
I would not be shocked if Denbrock doesn't come out and use Jaden Harrison as well against Igwenuka, because he is grabby. And if Harrison gets loose, look out, he's gone. He is gone. So, I mean, and again, we've said this before. Bill and I have been saying that the last couple of weeks. I mean, the man's only got 17 receptions this year. Why? I
Wow.
don't get this. I don't understand this, because if you watched him at Marshall, this guy gets you the short, the intermediate, and the long ball. You've got to use him as well.
He has the potential to be one of their best receiving threats, and his lack of usage has been entirely a puzzle to me. Maybe that'll change.
It doesn't puzzle me as much. I just don't see that being their philosophy. Their philosophy has been control. You take your shots here and there, but mostly control the game with your running game and control passing. You know, and I could see it if Riley Leonard was a more more of an elite passer than he is. You'd want to take those chances. They just don't feel comfortable doing it. They believe they're at their best when they're running the ball, letting him use his legs and using a controlled passing game, which doesn't really equate to throwing the ball vertical with said young man. So I think that's why you're seeing the lack of opportunities for him in that area, because it's just not in the way that they're playing. And I would love to see them take more, shots down the field. But they seem, especially with their young offensive line, they don't trust those guys to be out there holding out for 4 to 5 seconds while guys get open vertically. So I think that's where they're really more comfortable with the short and intermediate passing, letting those guys catch the ball and do things after the catch as opposed to trying to get it vertical. I think there's ways you can scheme it up to get that young man open vertical.
Oh, absolutely.
I just don't think that they're comfortable doing it. It just does not seem the way I've watched Notre Dame's games. That's not the way they play offense. It's rare when they come out looking to go vertical.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Notre Dame fighting average this year remind me a lot of the old Dallas Cowboys offensive philosophy, which is run the football, and then precisely pass the game. They
don't even remind me of that. They remind me of more of the '86 Giants, who will run the football, control the clock, take a shot here and there. Yep. But mostly the '86 Giants control. That is a Bill Parcells type scheme, which is we're going to play to our defense. We're not going to make the big mistakes. We'll take a shot every now and then just to keep you honest. But the main thing is we want to keep the ball, long drives, unless we're breaking long runs or long plays.
Well, again, that goes back to the 70s version of the Cowboys. I mean, Landry was doing that in the 70s. I mean, that was and that's when I started watching football, before you were born.
Oh, no, I was around for Landry.
I know you were. I know you were. But again, I mean, the 24-3 victory over the Dolphins.
No, that was.
I was alive for that. That's what I'm talking about. Is the 70s version of the Cowboys, where it was just run that ball, and then Roger the Dodger would turn himself loose with a precise pass, and that's what I see. So,
and the funny part was a lot of their deep shots. When you're talking about those teams, their deep shots, a lot of them weren't, drawn up. A lot of them were Roger, holding the ball a little bit longer, buying a little time and letting them go vertical. So, Roger was known to extend the plays, which is why, it looked a little different when Landry had anybody else out there. So
Dandy Don wasn't able to do that stuff, and that's why Roger became the quarterback for the Cowboys, is because Don.
And now they could Morton.
And he was in that battle with Craig Morton for almost a whole year, where they went back and forth. The thing that I think Riley Leonard will need to do is back them off, right? Because they're going to. I'm assuming.
Oh, they're going to press them. They've got to press them.
I'm assuming they're going to have everything, a heavy box, and because they don't really fear the speed of the perimeter players of Notre Dame, I'm assuming they're going to keep everything tight. And so you're going to have to do something to back them off, so whether it be a big play to, a tight end up the seam, but something down the field you're going to need to hit successfully, not just try, but successfully execute something down the field to get them out of that, because that's what I would do. I would have, 9 people within 7 yards of the line of scrimmage until you show me that you can operate further down the field. Otherwise, I'm going to just throttle you by having everyone, bunched up.
Well, that was the game last year against Sam Hartman as a quarterback for Notre Dame. They had 8 and 9 guys up in the box the whole time. And of course, the previous OC before Mr. Denbrock arrived started calling these dumb plays, and that led to the one turnover. And yeah, but again, Denbrock is gonna be smart enough to have something in his tool chest that attacks, especially Igbenuka. I think that guy is a handy type of corner, and there's 15 more yards. There's 15 more yards. You just keep coming at us then.
Yeah, you've got to make them pay in the running game. You cannot keep going out there and facing 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. You've got to have early success on first down. You got to be able to throw that quick game. But I think, like I said, I think they're going to crowd the receivers. I think they're going to give you different looks at the line of scrimmage. You think that they're coming a lot. They're not. They're just going to crowd it.
Right.
So I think you're going to get a lot of those looks. If I'm Notre Dame, I go back to that last Harbaugh game versus Ohio State and see how they handle that same thing when they went buck wild on that Buckeyes defense. I think that's the method you got to do. Still run the ball, have success, but hit them. If they give you those one-on-ones with the safeties, hit them and hit them hard. you know.
And we don't know the status of either Knapp or Spiller for the Irish on their offensive line yet either.
I don't know if Knapp plays.
Knapp, I don't think he did. I don't think he does. Spiller, because if Knapp doesn't play, then the young man who was at left tackle will also have Yasuga backing him up, because of course Yasuga was going to be the left tackle this year before he tore his pec. So again, that versatility that Notre Dame has on their offensive line means a whole lot.
So Texas, let's close the book on Texas.
Yeah.
All right. So we know Ewers moves on. It's now a Manning team.
Yes.
What does Texas have to do to get beyond this point next year? This is 2 years in a row they've been in the Final Four, and that's been it.
I think it comes down to two things. I think that in terms of physical toughness, the interior of both of their lines could still be upgraded, and they have talent. I'm going to make it clear they have talent there. Mr. Collins is going to make some money in the very near future. They have some talent there, but you want to have not just talent, but you want to have attitude, and you want to be a team that says you can't run up the middle on us. And which, to their credit, there wasn't a lot of interior run success. Obviously, the quarterback power being, sort of a one-off to some extent, and they gave up, a couple of chunk plays in the run game, but for the most part, they were stiff in the middle. And then on offense, and this is where they have even more work to do, the interior of their offensive line did not knock back and did not create those creases consistently in their run game. They weren't moving Ohio State consistently. Ohio State was either stalemating and in a few cases knocking them back. And you can't be a consistent winner against elite teams if you're going to lose or even tie more than half of the battles along the line of scrimmage on offense or defense. You've got to win the majority of those battles. You want to beat elite teams. No matter what you have going on the outside, no matter what your quarterback does, no matter how much speed you have at running back or wide receiver or any other position, if you are not consistently winning right there on the line against good teams, you won't go all the way. You won't win a national championship. That's the first thing that jumped out to me. And then secondarily, you do have to sometimes know when something isn't working, right? As we all hear about being stubborn and, being consistent and being all those other things, but you can fix that, at some point, but you can't do it in real time during a game. When you realize something's just flat out not working, then you need to move on to something else. In that, once again, that crucial second to last drive or second to last possession that Texas had, and like I said, there was that one sort of token run, and they should have said to themselves, okay, that's not how we're going to do it. We're not going to get it done running. They should have moved on to something where they do have an opportunity, right? Whether it be like a little now screen, whether it be, like I said, one of those little thunder shovel option deals, whether it be a tight end delay, something that takes advantage of aggression, right? As opposed to attacking aggression with aggression, or trying to flank, just flat out flank with no misdirection, a team with that kind of speed. It just doesn't work. You can't simply beat them to the corner. You've got really good speed. And I know there's this myth about the SEC having better speed than everybody, but no, the team speed advantage was Ohio State's. And though it was close, and obviously Golden being hobbled made it, maybe a little different than it would have been if he was 100%. But you could see that at almost any position you could name, Ohio State was either the equal or the slight edge at most positions for team speed went to them. They have a really athletic secondary. They have a tremendous D-line, and their linebackers, which, we talked to Josh at the beginning of the season, they thought that might be the weakness of the defense, and they've been solid. Maybe not spectacular, maybe not stars, but solid. So just attacking them with either downhill runs in crucial situations or trying to flank them in crucial situations, you'd seen enough of that defense to know that wasn't the way to go. In a must-have it situation, do what you do best, right? You schemed up some brilliant stuff in other situations that took advantage of the defense fast flow. You should have done that again in that crucial situation that would have prevented you from having to go to a drop back pass and then give up that sack that led to the fumble and, of course, put the game away.
I agree with you. I'm going to say this. You were talking about play calling, right? And how innovative Sark can be. Very true. Very innovative. Problem is, he is one of those guys that's Cliff Kingsbury is the same way. Very innovative. When it comes to mastering situations, not the most disciplined, right?
Right.
And I think that's when you watch Texas and you go, okay, why do they keep failing? Because they get in certain situations where, you look at it going, oh, they should be able to do this, they should be able to do that. And even when he was the OC in Atlanta, we saw that there too. Crucial situations where you pull out the call sheet and you have plays that you have worked on and practiced for this opponent for that situation, and you should be able to execute, and you can't seem to call up the right thing. Okay? Everybody's beating him up for the toss on the goal line. I can understand why he did it. He knew they were packed inside. However, you know what makes people pack inside more if you want to get outside? Going under center. So when you're in gun, okay, you're in shotgun and you're running the ball. Zone read is always an option. So there's always somebody on the outside that's thinking, I can't get sucked inside because, they may come outside. But when you're under center on the goal line, everybody on that front is thinking, I can't get pushed back. Very rarely do they toss and go outside.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing sometimes for these coordinators. And Sark should know better because he's been in the NFL and he understands how all this stuff works. But it's like you get upset with it. Brock gets upset with it. I know I get upset with it because I've called plays, and I've been in those situations. But to me, when you're on that goal line, when I first learned spread, the biggest weakness of the spread was when you got in the red zone. There's no real estate to threaten anybody deep. Teams can crowd the box and still play coverage, and they can have better success against your offense. Okay, so yes, if you have a really good quarterback, he can make up for a lot of things that can run the football or make special plays throwing the football. Quinn Ewers is a really good quarterback. I think we're starting to wonder if he's special. So when I look at it, that's where you look at this offense and where they struggle. They should have been able, with the backs they have, to finish going inside. They didn't do it. He didn't trust it. He tried to go outside and got put in a bad situation. They got pushed back as a result. That's that play calling I'm talking about. You know your personnel. You know those guys are really good at running inside. Nothing running with running it off tackle. You're still going forward. You're still going wider than where they're packing into the box. All right, so there are way
Did you
more.
see? Did you see Texas use 2 tight ends?
No.
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 And that's the. I mean, those are the play calls where you're that deep into somebody's. You know, you're on the goal line. You use 2 tight ends.
And honestly, you didn't even have to.
No,
all you have to do is motion that. All you have to do is motion that other receiver over there in the trips, and it's going to suck people out of the box.
Yep.
You know, so you can do what you want to do. So once again, it's just the simple thinking. It's the simplest stuff. When you try to get way too complicated and overthink it, is usually when you wind up hurting yourself, because it's the simplest stuff. Eventually, when you get inside the 5, you got to go straight ahead. You can't really go lateral too much because there's no real estate.
No.
So,
but again,
that run, while I understand why he did it, there were other ways to beat Ohio State to the punch at the 3-yard line, and he didn't do it. He wasn't confident in it.
Nope. And again, I don't know who Texas is going to be bringing in on their transfer portal, but boy, they got a lot of guys on that defense to switch out of there. I mean, you look at the Longhorns who are in this draft. You got Baron Sorrell, Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, Jahadi Barron, the corner, who not enough people are giving enough credit to.
Yeah.
You got a Makuba. Those are all guys who are all going to be gone, and those first 3 guys, that's their front.
Right. I believe they'll be all right because they've recruited very well. So
I
think they got a lot. They'll get some vets in from the portal to come in and help. But I think they'll be all right with what they've recruited the past few years defensively. I think they'll be fine. The main thing is you got to get past the situational. That's been their struggle. So if you can't sort that out, if you can't finally master those situations, there's always going to be one you fall short in, and that's been their downfall. They've always fallen short in certain situations in big games that have been the reason why their seasons have ended prematurely.
Well, Will Howard's now 1-3 versus the Longhorns.
Yes, he is now finally got a win.
He finally has his victory against the Longhorns, and again, he only lost the 2 of those games were at the very tail end. Right?
Yeah,
you know.
So again, he had to get away from K-State to do it. That's what it was.
Exactly. But even then, this is an issue that I have with the Texas Longhorns is the way that they do not play 60 minutes of football. They didn't.
That's been a curse under Sark.
That's right, and it happens under Sarkisian way too often. It cost them against the Georgia Bulldogs. It almost cost them against Arizona State. Until he has people who understand his kids get this message through their thick head, you got to play every minute, every down that you're out there for. Texas is just going to be what they are.
We saw this early with them. Think of a couple of years ago, Red River rivalry. They were up 28 on Oklahoma in the second half. And blew it.
Yep.
Lost in overtime. So that's unfortunately been what I always talk about, those situations. Closing out games has always been a risk for them.
Well, what did they say earlier tonight? It had been six straight third quarters that they hadn't scored a point.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't come out in the second half that lazily. You just can't.
Where are the adjustments? That's the question. Where are the adjustments?
Right. Like Matthew Golden was out quite a bit of the night. He had that one great catch, etc. Ryan Wingo, where was Wingo? And Isaiah Bond, this guy that everybody keeps hyping up, 1 catch, 8 yards.
Right.
Isaiah Bond, you need to stay in school because you're only a junior. You need to not declare for this draft, Isaiah.
Well, I don't see that happening. There's no way he declares now with the film he's put out. And somebody says, yeah, you're a day one guy. Nobody's saying that right now.
Exactly.
Not with the film that he's put out.
No.
Yeah. I feel like there's going to be someone who emerges, right? We've talked about the stars, guys like Sawyer and for Notre Dame, they're some of the guys in their secondary and some of the guys in their young Mr. Cross and some of the other guys. But somebody, like I always sort of ask about, who's the player we're not talking about, that is going to do something important, impactful.
Gabriel Rubio.
There you go. Right. That's a good one. That's a good possibility there. I wonder if, like we saw with Cardell Tate, maybe, somebody like, I don't know, probably who else they have that we haven't talked about, but maybe, somebody else amongst that talent group on the
Chris Mitchell.
Oh yeah, right. The transfer, right? The Florida international, I think it was transfer. Yeah, that's another player I thought would get more usage. Though he's had some good games, but I thought he'd be used even more once he got Notre Dame because I think he's got NFL potential as well. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about is maybe is there an offensive lineman that has an amazing game and springs a couple of long runs? Is there someone else who does or something that gets the team refocused or fired up or pulled back from the edge? I mean, it's so many different things beyond just what you do that shows up in a box score that can affect the outcome of a game, whether it be hyping someone up or just reacting calmly when something goes wrong and showing people, even if you're not a big talker, showing people that we're going to be okay, often is the most important thing that you can do.
All right. So we've talked about both games from yesterday and today. We talked about next week. Guys, we're one game away from the official end of the college football season. Everybody knows draft season comes up right behind it. We'll be back on the air right after National Championship Night, the 22nd, for the first night of Draft Central here on Team MBS Media. You'll see these same three faces talking about the draft. That'll be Wednesday nights at 9:15 p.m. 9:15. Little slight change in time. Normally start at 9. We'll be kicking it back just a little bit, about 15 minutes, 9:15. Have some meetings that are going to push me up till 9 o'clock. So that's why we're going at 9:15, not 9 o'clock. We're about to wrap that up and get back on the road and get in the college bowl season. I'll be at Hula Bowl tomorrow, Tropical Bowl next week. So, Bill, you're going to Senior Bowl.
I'll still be at home watching more and more film of these guys because
we don't do too many bowl games up in Canada, Greg. So.
No, exactly. The East-West Shrine game needs to come up here to Calgary and at the end of that'd be lovely at the end of January. Y'all
need a dome stadium so they can do it up there in a dome.
Well, we do have BC Place.
There we go.
Yeah, you go. Sky Dome is mainly for baseball, but we'll give you.
It's only a baseball stadium now with the reconstruction that they've done. You can't even put a football field on there anymore. So it's BC Place, and again though, we don't understand this short field and that little wide the width thing. 53 yards. What is that? We're 65 yards across, baby. But again, I mean, I've already got.
That's only because y'all use the metric system. That's
well, no. It's 65 feet, 110 yards, 65 feet, which is the actual size of a real football field from England.
Yes, I know. We know. Yes,
it's not called that S word. It just isn't.
Down here it is.
I know. But as I explained to Keith, it came from the British writers who shortened association football, and they came out with SOC first, and then they added the CER later. Well, you Americans, myself included, since I was born in Montana, we beat the British and kicked them out of the country. Why do you guys use one of their dirty words?
Because we made our own football. That's why.
Oh.
So we have to distinguish between the two. We're not going to say in America American football. We're just going to say football and say
football. Exactly.
We'll let y'all distinguish outside of the states.
And the Canadian Football League is even different because we only play 3 downs. We use a lot more of the rugby terminology than the Americans did as well, because again, we had the British influence on this country forever and a day. So that's the differences.
Yeah. So, any closing words, guys?
The last thing I will say is there is going to be somebody who goes down, right? It happens. Football is, especially in a season that's getting longer and longer. Some of these teams are playing their 15th game, or 16th game, depending on if they have had a championship game. So you're going to see somebody go down. This is where you're going to see, the development of depth. Which team has the ability to put a player, somebody's even a key player out there, and not have a big drop off, or even have that players being called upon step up and distinguish themselves. I think that will also be an important determinant in the outcome of this game, is when, not if, but when, because somebody, whether they miss a few plays or miss the rest of the game, somebody at some point is going to get dinged up, or somebody might get tossed because they just unsportsmanlike or whatever it is. But at some point, you're going to see an important player miss a little bit of time, or like I said, maybe even more than a little bit. Will whoever comes on in their stead be able to hold or perhaps even raise the standard from where it was set? And then last but not least, the adjustments, right? That was the difference to some extent in both of the last games we watched, both Penn State versus Notre Dame and this game we just watched. We saw that there was an advantage gained by the team that made the more effective adjustments. And that, I think, will also be the other thing that'll be super important. Both these coaches' staffs, both Ohio State and Notre Dame, are extremely well known, extremely well paid, and extremely respected. We will find out which one is a little more prepared to win a national championship very soon.
Greg?
I want to send a little message out to Cameron Newton, James Franklin, and all these other clowns who keep saying that Notre Dame needs to not be an independent school. If you want to blame somebody, it's a gentleman from that school up north, Fielding Yost, who didn't like Knute Rockne. When Knute Rockne wanted to join the Big Ten in 1926, he was told no by that school up north. They've been independent ever since, and they'll remain independent. Bottom line, stop talking about Notre Dame joining any conferences. They've got their own network. That's it. Live with it. And if you don't think that Notre Dame deserves to be in this game, Cam Newton, your 2 SEC schools that they've beaten and 4 Big Ten schools. I forgot they beat up the Fight On clowns this year too, and they're now a Big Ten school. So I was wrong last night when I was 3-0 against the Big Ten. It's 4-0. Plus they play the ACC teams. So what more do you want Notre Dame to do? What more can Notre Dame do to prove to you that they deserve to be in this national championship game?
Yeah, that's I'm beyond that argument. It's already, we look at the schedule, it is what it is. And I know that people go, oh, they play a weak schedule. I go, they play an ACC schedule that's modified, and it has Big Ten schools, it has SEC schools on it. I said they don't play Citadel like some of the SEC schools do, and nobody complains, right? So, yep. I mean, come on, guys, let's stop with the schedule stuff. They're an independent. They're always going to be an independent unless they feel the need to join a conference like they did during COVID for 1 year. They gave them a 1 year mulligan and said we're ACC. Other than that, they were independent, and that's how Notre Dame's always going to be. It is what it is. You know, people need to get over that. Stop trying to come up with reasons to stop saying Notre Dame doesn't deserve this. They're winning on the football field. They deserve everything they're getting. End of story.
Exactly. And I mean, even when they were given the 7th seed, which I disagreed with because they had a better record than Texas, which was the 5th seed.
Yeah.
So we should have played Clemson first and foremost. That would have, and all that other jazz. But again, I didn't complain too much about this. I just said, yep, that's the typical NCAA attitude towards Notre Dame. I'm used to it. Everybody who cheers for Notre Dame understands this. We know going in, we're always going to be the underdog for everybody who can't stomach the fact that Notre Dame succeeds. Well, this year, they beat you guys up. So live with it.
Yeah, well, it is worth mentioning that, the Big Ten, once again, as I said, throughout the season was, to me, clearly the most competitive and balanced of all the conferences top to bottom. The SEC was probably the third most competitive and balanced, maybe top to bottom conference that I saw. No, certainly no better than third. So this is not the year. If you're at SEC, whatever, keep your powder dry. You might have chances in the future to claim superiority, but not this year. This year's not the year.
No.
The SEC was not a great conference this year.
All right. So, guys, we'll see each other in a little over a week.
Yep.
To go over, to watch and see who comes out on top. We have 2 shows this week for Moving the Chains for Wild Card Weekend. So there'll be one Saturday morning, hosted by the gentleman on the top of your screen right there. And then I will be back with the regular crew on Sunday morning. So
I'll be with you Sunday morning, Jeff, and I'll also be producing Mr. Carroll's show tomorrow morning. So I'll be doing all the graphics and all that fun sort of stuff for Bill's show. And then tomorrow night, the final word for all you Cowboys haters. Come on board. Go ahead. Say whatever you want to say about the Cowboys, because I'm certainly going to be saying my fair share about the issues involving the Dallas Cowboys. And Eric Sharp is going to be joining me.
there's going to be a lot of hate on that show.
Oh, boy. Yes. Diabolical levels of hatred will be floating around. There'll be a dark cloud hovering over the Team MBS page during that time. Yes.
I've learned anybody that has tortured in their name, or maligned, anything that's self-deprecating. Usually that's not exactly the most joyous content.
Well, but see, Eric and I are old enough that we lived through those first 25 seasons of being Cowboys fans, where we were in the Super Bowl 8 times and all that good sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think it spoiled some fans because they don't know that's not normal. That's the one part about it. It's not normal. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, but we've seen the Patriots do that.
The Patriots took years to get to that point, though. Remember, that's an AFL team.
That's true. And I saw a stat today that the AFL teams from 1960, so the Kansas City Chiefs, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Raiders, the New York Jets. Who else was there? But anyhow, four of them have records above 500. The bottom 14. It's the Bills. The Bills, the Chargers, the New York Jets. And who was the fourth team? Anyhow, the 4 teams are below
Broncos.
500. No, the Broncos are above 500 because they got more wins than the Raiders do. The Raiders were the fourth. But anyhow, those bottom 4 teams, they need to be relegated out of the league like they do over in the English Premier League. That's it. I don't want to hear no more talk about those teams. They're gone.
Okay.
Oh, we don't have that?
No.
On that rather controversial note, we are. And I'll remind people once again that Team MBS Media, though we do provide a platform for Greg Rector, his thoughts,
these are my words only. They're only my words. Yes, we know this. We already know. It's
unlike the Premier League, NFL owners are a lot tighter than that. They will not throw each other under the bus unless it is financially beneficial.
Well, see, this is where this is another idea.
See Jerry Richardson and Dan Snyder.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But no, so yes, the final word tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So again, all you haters out there, come on in, make your comments and all that fun sort of stuff. It'll be a lot of fun.
Right. So you can spend basically your entire day with us. Start your day if you're Eastern time, 11 a.m. with us, 10 Central, 9 Mountain, 8 Pacific, and I don't know, 5 a.m. Hawaii, whatever the heck it is. Start your day with us, and then you can end your day with us. Just lock it into Team MBS Media.
You got it.
All right. With that being said, everybody, thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed both of these games the past 2 nights. Get ready for some NFL action this weekend. And we'll be back with more of that coverage as well. For Bill Carroll, Greg Rector, and myself, we want to say thank you for watching. Have a great night. We will be back with more very, very soon.
My thoughts and prayers to all those affected by the fires.
Amen.
Absolutely.